Recent data suggests that cyber criminals are relocating their activities from the dark web to messaging apps like Discord, Skype, Telegram, WhatsApp, and get this, even ICQ. For Tech Republic, I'm Dan Patterson with Elon Arvitz. He is the Chief Product Officer at Insights, a dark web monitoring service that tracks activity across the encrypted internet. Elon, thank you very much for your time today. What does this shift from the dark web to messaging apps mean?
Yeah, so I think this shift has many implications for companies and security of companies, because it actually means that the way people are doing and engaging with cybercrime is completely different. So first of all, when you talk about shifting from a very exclusive places and forum on the dark webs to a mobile app, then suddenly cybercrime becomes more accessible for bigger circles. Suddenly people that in the past maybe had problems reaching to these places, so today it's a lot more accessible and it's easier to engage in this in cybercrime activity. So I think the one and most important implication of this shift is the fact that we're going to see more people engaging in cybercrime circles. And I think when you talk about what it means, this is the main thing we should put in mind.
So the dark web has been around for a long time, as have encrypted messaging apps. What caused this shift now?
So I think I would say there are two main factors for that. First of all is a global trend of moving to mobile. So, today, whatever you do, not only cybercrime, talking to people, whatever you do, or consuming news, you do it on the mobile. So I think there is a shift and people are, using more and more mobile. And there's also a factor that's very specific to cybercrime, because in the past year, we can see that law enforcement agencies are targeting black markets on the dark web. And we can see that the biggest marketplaces has been shut down following these efforts. So you can see that law enforcement are targeting more and more the dark web, traditional black markets and forums, so hackers have to do the shift.
The dark web is just a name we give for sites that are encrypted and accessible only using browsers or browser add-ons like Tor that will anonymize and encrypt traffic. The same is not true for apps like Discord, ICQ, Skype, Telegram, WhatsApp. These are all owned by major corporations who, in theory, have access to some consumer data. What does this mean for law enforcement's relationship with the massive companies that own these apps?
So I definitely think that, following this shift, law enforcement agencies would have to do a shift as well. So if until today they try to get access to these forums or black markets in all kind of ways of, trying to get it without cooperation or approval of the forum owner, now I think they should, maybe focus more on doing cooperations with the owners of these messaging platforms.
What does this say for the future of markets? Again, many of these markets were distributed or they were stored on servers outside the jurisdiction of Western law enforcement. Are markets also shifting to mobile?
Markets, so that's a good question. So I think it's, first of all, important to understand the transactions of money and getting the goods, that still stays on blockchain technologies. So that still happens there. So what's moved to the mobile, that's the discussion about what I have to offer for sale, and yes, I want to buy it, etc. So this type of thing we'll see shifting, but the actual transaction will probably stay on the traditional channels of blockchain.
I wonder what this says about the future of the dark web. And although we know there are many legitimate uses, there is also criminal activity and law enforcement's emphasis on shutting down dark web markets. Does this mean that systemically as a whole going forward, the dark web will simply be less popular for criminals? or is this simply a lull in activity and we'll see the pendulum shift back at some point?
Yeah. So it's actually, very, very hard to say. What we can see now is this shift, but these things, can change. I can tell you that if we'll witness that law enforcement agencies are able to, obtain the information from these platforms and hackers will understand it well, I assume that we'll see another shift. It might be, again, going back to forums or to new ways of communication that, we're not familiar with yet.
Ilan Arvitz is the Chief Product Officer at Insights, a dark web monitoring firm. Ilan, I wonder if you could leave us with a few predictions about 2018 and beyond on the dark web and encrypted internet. Where are we going? Will we simply see a continuation of the proliferation of things like cyber weapons and hacking tools, or is the dark web at its peak?
So I think that the dark web is definitely not at its peak, and we'll see it, pumping up in 2018. Something that we have seen all through 2017, and we'll see it as, as a trend that will keep on going in 2018, is the commodification of cybercrime. It will be a lot more easier to be cyber criminal in 2018 because the forums and discussions and platforms for discussion will be a lot more accessible. And because that the good hackers or the more professional hackers will provide tools that you need no prior knowledge or experience in order to operate and launch a cyber attack. So the tools will be more accessible and easier to use. And I think that, we're not at the peak and we'll see more and more people engaging in cybercrime in 2018.